The Phantom Frequency. Good evening and welcome to Midnight City Radio. Settle into your armchairs, dim the lights, and draw near. The city outside is sleeping, but here, on the airwaves, the stories never rest. Tonight, I want to tell you a legend, a story that executives from the great radio networks of the 1940s swear never happened. They speak of a pirate broadcast, a station that could only be tuned in by accident in the deepest hours of the night. They called it the Phantom Frequency. And the tale we are about to hear is its most infamous broadcast. The story of a man named Leonard Finch and the price he paid for fame. They say the original transmission aired on a stormy night just like this one, back in 1948. Leonard Finch was a jazz trumpeter, and not a very good one. He played in smoky bars and second-rate clubs across Chicago, dreaming of the spotlight, of his name in bright marquees. But his trumpet seemed to weep only notes of failure and despair. Every night, after another mediocre performance for an indifferent audience, Leonard would walk the wet city streets, his trumpet case feeling as heavy as an anchor in his hand. On one such night, as he passed a darkened alley, a voice called out to him. A voice as smooth as velvet, yet as cold as the winter wind blowing off the lake. Leonard stopped, startled. He peered into the shadows, asking who was there and how they knew his name. From the darkness, a figure emerged. A tall man, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, a fedora pulled low to hide his face. The only thing Leonard could see clearly was the glint of a silver ring on his finger. The man explained that he was an admirer of potential. He claimed he could hear the music Leonard wanted to play, not the music he could play. He offered him everything, the applause, the recognition, his name on everyone's lips. Leonard let out a bitter laugh, dismissing the offer as an old joke about selling one's soul. But the man in the shadows was not interested in his soul. He wanted something trivial, he explained, something Leonard would not even notice was gone. He wanted his final note. The meaning was lost on Leonard, so the stranger clarified. Leonard would enjoy a long, successful career. He would have all the fame he ever dreamed of, but the very last note he would ever play in his life, that single note, would belong to the stranger. When the time came, he would come to collect it. A small price, the man suggested. Desperate and ambitious, Leonard Finch did not think twice. There, in a forgotten alleyway, he reached into the darkness, shook the stranger's cold hand, and sealed the pact. The following week, something changed. Leonard's trumpet no longer wept, it sang. His notes were pure, powerful, filled with an emotion he never knew he possessed. Success came like an avalanche, bigger clubs, recording contracts, his name finally in neon lights. Leonard Finch became a jazz legend. He toured the country, played for sold-out crowds, and lived the life he had always craved. He completely forgot about the man in the alley and his bizarre promise. 20 years went by. Leonard was older now, his hair gray, but his talent still burned brightly. He stood on the stage of tacked Carnegie Hall for what was to be the biggest show of his career. He raised the trumpet to his lips for the final song of the evening, the slow, moving ballad of his own composition. The audience was in a silent, hypnotic trance. He played with all his soul, each note telling the story of his life. And then he prepared for the final note, the single note that would end the performance. As he drew his breath, His eyes scanned the front row, and he froze. Sitting there was the man from the alley. He hadn't aged a day. The same dark suit, the same fedora, and on his face, the same cold smile. The man raised a hand, revealing the silver ring, and lightly tapped his own ear, as if to say, "I am waiting." A cold dread washed over Leonard. He understood. The final note of the song would be the final note of his life. He couldn't play it. If he did, the deal would be fulfilled. He stood paralyzed on the stage, his trumpet in his hands, the silence stretching across the concert hall. The crowd began to whisper, confused. Leonard looked desperately to the sides at his fellow musicians, but no one else seemed to see the man in the front row. He was a ghost, visible only to him. With trembling hands, he lowered his trumpet. He would not play the note. He couldn't. He turned and ran from the stage, abandoning his trumpet, his career, everything. The end of that broadcast from the phantom frequency ended there, abruptly. They say Leonard Finch never touched a trumpet again. He vanished from public life, living out the rest of his days in obscurity, terrified of silence, terrified that any sound might be his last. A story, perhaps, invented to frighten ambitious musicians, or perhaps not. So the next time you hear a melody that seems too good to be true, ask yourself what price was paid for it. Thank you for tuning in to Midnight City Radio. Have a good night, and sleep well, if you can.